This is part 10 of Jim and Jamie Dutcher's The Wisdom of Wolves, or part 11 rather. It's the chapter 10. It's the final chapter of the book. So here we go. The Wolf in the Mirror from Jamie's perspective. I miss winter nights most of all, especially during those happy years when the 8 wolves we knew best had formed a cohesive pack. At those times when Jim and I were the only 2 human beings at wolf camp, we spent our days out in the deep snow in biting cold, Jim filming and me recording sound, following the pack and watching their lives unfold. The sun would dip behind Williams Peak just after 2 in the afternoon. When the light grew too poor for filming, we'd go into the yurt and shed our heavy coats and boots, light the wood stove, put a homemade pizza in to cook, and open a bottle of wine that we dubbed Chateau Yurt, quote unquote. Then Jim and I would sit, talk about the behavior we had witnessed that day, and brainstorm scenes that we wanted to film in the days to come. At about 9 p.m., we'd head down the steps from the yurt platform to our sleeping tent. Jim would light hurricane lamps and a small wood stove, just enough to take the edge off the cold, and we'd snuggle into bed under a heap of down. Everything in our tent froze solid the moment the little wood stove went out. Sometimes I'd wake in the middle of the night, but I wouldn't dare move lest I'd disrupt the warm cocoon of our bed. So I would just lie still and listen to the forest at night. In the ice-cold air, every sound seemed amplified, and I could hear the wolves stirring quietly just outside. The pack kept its own schedule, but they often liked to bed down for a snooze about the same time we did. We noticed that each wolf had its favorite sleeping spot. Just as dogs do, they turned a few circles before lying down. Repeating this action night after night, each wolf would pack down a little hollow in the snow that we called a sleep sink, quote unquote. After a while, they would customize their sinks with willow branches and even pieces of elk hide, which may have added a layer of insulation. Once in bed, they never slept for more than a couple of hours at a stretch. Sometimes before going to sleep, I'd set up my microphone outside the tent and run the cables inside to the tape deck, which I'd have to keep in bed with us to prevent the batteries from dying in the cold. If the wolves awakened me during the night, all I had to do was push the record button. Then I'd lie comfortably in bed and listen to their sounds through my headphones. I could hear the crunch of snow under their paws as they moved about, chewing on a leftover bone, conversing and playing just as they did during the day, when they were completely unfazed by the darkness, and they didn't seem to mind the brutal cold one bit. On special occasions of their choosing, their howls would pierce the night. Watts slept as close to our tent as he possibly could. During the day he was somewhat aloof, but at night he liked to be near us, because perhaps the glow of our lamps and the muffled sound of our conversation were a comfort to him, reminding him of the days when we cared for him as a newborn pup. With only chain link and thin canvas between us and him and us, we could hear his breathing just a few feet away. When he was inspired to howl in the middle of the night, he could launch us right out of bed. Comet slept farthest from us, and I believe that was by design. As Alpha, he was the pack's guardian and protector, always ready to face danger. He seemed to understand that our camp was a safe place, so he stationed himself at a far outpost where he could keep eyes and ears on the rest of his territory. When he would howl, the sound would float in with a spooky echo coming off the mountains. Wolves howl for more reasons than we will ever know, but after years in their company I began to detect nuances in their delivery and understand their basic meanings. Sometimes comets and one or two others would howl into the night, seemingly in response to a far-off sound too faint for me to hear, perhaps a distant coyote or the rustle of an elk in the forest. In this way, I could feel the tension hanging in the silence as they listened for a reaction. Sometimes I thought they might be checking to see if other wolves were out there. At other times, their night howls sounded more like their energetic daytime howls, the one the ones that signaled a pack rally. As unperturbed by the cold and darkness as they were, I could tell they were indeed gathering for a rally or a spirited round of play. I could hear the galloping of paws as they ran toward each other, followed by cheerful snarling, yipping, and Chewbacca sounds that always accompanied their good times. By far my favorite of their nocturnal vocalizations was what I thought of as check-in howls, quote unquote, because it really seemed like they were checking in with one another in the darkness, and what sounded like a friendly conversation. One wolf would howl, then pause, and another would reply, and sometimes a third would chime in. I imagined they were saying something like, "Are you there? I'm here. I'm fine. I'm fine over here too." The final note would end and then echo back from the mountains and fade away. I would hear Wahat's shift restlessly and let out a deep sigh as he lay back down, then everything would be silent again. Daytime always centered on work. Our first priority was capitalizing on the best light of morning and evening for filming. We filmed the rest of the daylight hours with repairing equipment, uh, chopping wood, shoveling the all important path to the outhouse, or doing any of the 100 other chores that had to be done. But at night, all that fell away. It was time just to be still. At night, I could reflect on the incredible reality in which I found myself, snuggled and warm next to my partner in creativity and in life in the most stunning wilderness in North America, surrounded by a pack of wolves that knew me and trusted me. That trust and that intimacy with another being were the greatest gifts that Lakota, Kamats, Chinook, and their family gave to Jim and me. In the years we lived with the Sawtooth Pack, we experienced flashes of discovery and occasional moments of great drama, but these are not what I remember most. What resonates far stronger in my memory is the privilege of being among them and sharing day-to-day moments of simple beauty. The gestures of compassion, the acts of humor and curiosity, and the displays of unbreakable pack bonds. I came to know every wolf in that pack as an individual with a personality as unique as any human's. Each individual, Yet each individual expressed devotion to the others with an openness and a sincerity that are, I think, beyond most humans. Recently, I was running errands near our home and had an NPR on, as I usually do, half paying attention to the stories and half wrapped up in my own thoughts when an interview hooked my interest. Terry Gross was talking to Kenneth Lonergan, director of the film Manchester by the Sea, on the subject of grief. Lonergan was explaining something he had read about overcoming loss, and he made the distinction between two ways of facing the future, quote, moving on, end quote, and moving forward, quote unquote. To move on is to push the past away, forget grief, ignore the lessons, and put everything behind you. To move forward is to hold on to some of the sorrow and pain, but in doing so, to honor the memory of what you've lost and the wisdom that came from the experience. That's a harder, more rewarding path to take. I guess I would say moving on is cutting off the past while moving forward is allowing it to change you. Though it has been years since our project ended, when I heard this interview, my mind immediately went back to the wolves. I've heard someone speculate that wolves live in the eternal now, quote unquote, that they are unburdened by past and future, forever existing in the purity of the moment. Having lived with them, I'm not convinced. Of course, I'm certain that wolves are far more grounded in the here and now than we are. It's a struggle for me to stay in the present, when every sight and sound sparks a million mental connections firing in every direction. I suppose wolves are not plagued by the endless mental chatter that clouds our human minds. But I think it's an oversimplification to think that wolves don't remember their past or ponder their possible future. We've learned from watching them that wolves are curious and inquisitive and prone to exploration. What would have impelled a wolf to make a journey of hundreds of miles, if not his own imagination conjuring images of new places and new experiences? From our friends, we've heard heartwarming reports of a young male wolf exuberantly dragging a bison skull over a mile to deliver it to his younger siblings. What could have driven this seemingly pointless endeavor other than his own expectation of the joyful reception his gift would elicit? We have also watched the Sawtooth Pack stand in silent mourning in the spot where, months earlier, their beloved packmate was killed. What could have what could have been running through their minds other than memories of their lost friend and the grief of knowing she was gone? I find myself believing that wolves do not live in the eternal now, nor do they blindly move on and forget past experiences. Wolves move forward. In fact, they may do so better than many of us can. Think of all think of all we have done to wolves over the centuries and all the suffering we have inflicted upon them. We have shot them and caught them in painful traps by the thousands. We have killed parents in front of their children and ripped families apart. As a result, wolves have changed. Where once they strode confidently over open plains, they now live in the shadows. They have adapted to living as fugitives in a world dominated by unfriendly humans. I believe wolves hold on to memories of grief and fear and carry them as they move forward. Perhaps they carry older, more pleasant memories too. Memories of past times of camaraderie when wolves and humans were equal on this earth. Even today, if you see a wolf in the wild, you can rest assured he knows you're there and he's letting you see him. Wolves are still curious, still playful and compassionate. Occasionally, they still reach out to us. After all we've done, we've we have not broken them. In the long tangled relationship between our two species, perhaps we are the ones that have failed to move forward, opting instead to simply move on. We have forgotten our past kinship and have slammed the door on these ancient memories. In the closing paragraphs of one of the greatest books ever written on wolves, Never Cry Wolf, Farley Mowat writes, quote, "We have doomed the wolf not for what it is, but for what we deliberately and mistakenly perceive it to be, the mythologized epitome of a savage, ruthless killer, which is, in reality, no more than a reflected image of ourself." End quote. What strikes me most deeply in this passage is the word deliberately, quote unquote. For without a doubt, our vilification of the wolf has been deliberate and methodical. Our ability to kill wolves with the dispassion that we do requires willful ignorance, given the intelligent, family-oriented creatures they have revealed themselves to be. Over centuries, we have wrapped them in a complex mythology woven of medieval fears and superstitions. Wolves may indeed be killers, but then again, so are we, and we are much more ruthless, efficient, and prolific at it. If wolves were half as terrible as we make them out to be, they wouldn't have been so easy to eradicate. A primer on wolf trapping from 1909 includes a quote from a hunter that attests, quote, "I never hesitate in entering a wolf den, even when I know the mother wolf is with their young, and have never known one to act vicious, but always sneaking and cowardly." End quote. This book goes on to instruct the readers on how to use strong fish hooks, quote unquote, to drag pups out of their dens. In the face of such brutality, adult wolves responded only with passivity and fear, and perhaps despair at being unable to protect their pups from such a powerful foe. Yet we continue to call them savage. Farley Mowat was right. Some of what we hate about wolves is nothing more than our own reflection. Wolves have never stopped showing us who they really are. Beneath the suspicion and mistrust we have that we have heaped on them, they really do offer a reflection of ourselves, as Mowat wrote, and it is far brighter than one we've grown accustomed to seeing. To my eyes, wolves are virtual superheroes, embodying so many of the qualities we admire in the best of our kind. As athletes, they are unparalleled, able to pull down animals more than 4 times their size with nothing but their legs and their jaws. As team players, they excel at cooperation, reading each other's actions and thinking as one. They look after their youngest and oldest with limitless patience, care, and devotion. Almost every day in a wolf's life requires some kind of heroism, some act worthy of our admiration. I suppose when we lived more like they lived, we were heroic too. Perhaps we resent them for retaining some of the virtues we've lost. Our last film, Living with Wolves, aired in 2005 just as films like ours were falling out of favor with major networks, replaced by so-called reality programs that were cheaper in every sense of the word. The reality-style competition shows that emerged during that era of spawned a phrase uttered with such frequency that it became a cliche. Quote, "I am not here to make friends," end quote. In the world of reality television, compassion is a liability. Might past Might is passed off as strength, and selfishness masquerades as clear-eyed realism. Meanwhile, we seem to mistake gentleness for weakness. It has been said that a society can be judged by how it treats its most vulnerable. Maybe we're conflicted about wolves because we're so conflicted about ourselves. In the end, the only virtue that wolves need from us is honesty, regarding them, regarding us, and regarding our shared past. Only by seeing them as they are, as neither demon nor deity, but as creatures worthy of our admiration, will we find tolerance within our own human character. Wolves still have enough land to claim as home, enough prey to hunt, enough space to explore, but we have to let them. Ed Bangs is a retired U.S. Fish and Wildlife official who led the wolf reintroduction effort in the northern Rockies. For 23 years, he was at the center of the storm, caught in the middle between wolf haters and wolf lovers. He put this ultimate truth as simply as anyone could when he wrote, quote, "I've always said that the best wolf habitat resides in the human heart. You have to leave a little space for them to live." End quote. Kamatz, Lakota, Matsi, and the other wolves of the Sawtooth Pack have done their part and told their stories to the world. Wolves across America have gradually revealed the depth and complexity of their lives to any willing to see. Nothing more should be expected of them. It is up to us now. That is the end of the last chapter. We have acknowledgments. It's been almost 30 years since our project with the Sawtooth Wolves began. This book could not have been written during the years when the wolves were part of our daily lives, or even in the years immediately following. Sometimes the seeds of enlightenment need time to germinate. We are grateful for the friendship and talent of James Manful, the creative writer of our film treatments and books about the Sawtooth Pack. He has worked tirelessly helping us shape this deeply personal story and share our journey with others. We are thankful to our editor, Susan Hitchcock, who has always believed in our work and our story, and who encouraged us to write this book about the gifts of wisdom the Sawtooth Pack taught us. With her National Geographic books, we thank photo editor Susan Blair, designer Nicole Miller, and production editor Judith Klein for helping make this book a reality. We owe special thanks to Garrick Dutcher, the multi-talented multi-talented and creative program director of our nonprofit organization, Living with Wolves. His hard work and dedication are equaled only by his passion for wolves. We are indebted to Mark Beckoff for his generosity in agreeing to write the foreword to this book. Through his research in many books, Mark has single-handedly brought the emotional lives of animals to the forefront. No longer can people talk about animals without acknowledging the emotional lives they lead. We would also like to thank our dear friend Norma Douglas, who has always been with us throughout our journey with wolves, whether on our films, our books, or our nonprofit organization. Norma has always had our back, quote unquote, and has been instrumental in helping us whatever we set out to do. In this book, in addition to the stories about our time with the Sawtooth Pack, it was important for us to share stories of many wolves we don't know personally. The wolves of Denali National Park and Preserve and in Yellowstone National Park. These stories would not be as rich if it were not for the help and dedication of Rick McIntyre, who has kept a watchful eye on the Yellowstone wolves since they were reintroduced into the park, and of his many wolf watchers, too numerous to name, who are out there in the field day after day, rain or shine, extreme heat or bitter cold. We recommend that if you are ever in Yellowstone to you stop by and to say hello to these volunteers. You can always find them parked on the side of the road with their spotting scopes. We would like to thank Wally Montgomery for the many Yellowstone stories and the video footage he has shared with us, and Nell and Bob Harvey for taking the time to share their stories of watching wolves in Yellowstone as we stood together on top of a rise on a very cold May morning watching the Junction Butte Pack and their pups. Thank you to Doug Smith for sharing so much of his knowledge and for always taking the time to speak with us, and to Kira Cassidy for her groundbreaking research on the importance of older wolves within a pack. It's a wonderful thing to meet someone new whose theories, feelings, and ideas resonate so well with our own. And of course, we recall with gratitude the memory of Gordon Haber, who was able to express so well the emotional lives of wolves he was watching in Denali's for so many years. We feel very lucky to have spent the time we had with him in the field. He was ahead of his time, and his life was cut too short. Most of all, none of this would have been possible without the wolves of the Sawtooth Pack. They gave us the greatest gift that could ever be given from one species to another: trust. And with that trust, they opened their world to us. In the end, they made us better for it. We became better human beings by watching and learning what the wolves had to teach us about life, love, compassion, and care. We will never forget them or what they taught us. They are with us every day in everything we do, guiding us forward. That's Jim and Jamie. And that concludes this book. And in honor to the Sawtooth Pack, I should play my one tune called 14 Wolves. It was made long before I even knew about this book, but I think it seems appropriate that it should be played.